are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 253 of the College Loop Podcast. I am Don Larck, AWOTech on Twitter, to talk to you about the latest Auburn athletics news, because we have everything on the docket for today. Everything from football to men's basketball to women's basketball, baseball, and softball, all on the docket to talk about today, because schedules are getting released left and right. But to start off with football, something we weren't able to talk about on the Sunday live stream, because that was the day where we are going to be talking about the games. So starting off, Auburn picked up yet another commitment in the class of 2024, or class 2025, excuse me. Elijah Melendez, linebacker out of Osceola High School in Kissimmee, Florida. I had to Google translate that one to see exactly how to say that one. I almost said Kissimmee, if I thought it was, but I think it's Kissimmee. Four-star linebacker, number 17 linebacker in the class of 2025. Four-star composite, still a three-star across the board, across other platforms, but a athletic, quick linebacker that can fill the gaps very quickly, and just an absolute beast. That I cannot wait to see how he develops over the course of his career at Auburn. So right now, as it stands, so Auburn is number 4 in the class 2024, where they are probably still got a few more guys on the way to pick up. I know Naeem Offord is still in Auburn's sights to see if they're going to end up flipping him, as well as Andrew Babalola, 5-star offensive tackle that Auburn is heavily trying to get, and then Deuce Knight. Still trying to gauge where Auburn stands with him. He will be back for the Auburn-Oklahoma game, not this week, but next week. So Auburn's still still recruiting at a high level that we're expecting to see, and that we have grown accustomed to over the course of the Hugh Freeze era. But Elijah Melendez committing to the Tigers is a massive step in the right direction. Got him to decommit from Miami, and now he is with the Auburn Tigers, where Auburn has now picked up 24 commits, and this class is loaded from top to bottom, especially with defensive talent. I mean, your top 4 players are all defensive players. You have 2 edge rushers, a defensive lineman, and a safety. Of course, you also have like Nate Marshall, Jordan Crawford, Anquan Fegans, Antonio Coleman, Blake Woodby, Devin Williams, Donovan Starr, Elijah Melendez, that we've been talking about, Bryce Diaz, that was playing linebacker, Dante Core, and all those guys going down the list. Of course, I didn't even mention the guys I was just mentioning: Jared Smith, Blake Autry, Jaquela Falk, and Eric Winters. The defense is getting touched on during this recruiting cycle. You know, Auburn's secondary did not look the best, and Auburn's secondary does not have the most developed talent behind the starters. So this is a huge, huge thing to watch happen as Auburn continuously recruits at one of the highest levels in the sport. So massive pickup for Auburn. And also yesterday was the Hugh Freeze press conference, as we are getting ready for the Arkansas game, as Auburn opens up SEC play this Saturday. Cannot wait for that game as well, because I think you're going to learn a lot about the Tigers in this game. I think this is going to be the game where you finally see more of what Auburn can do offensively, because in the press conference, Hugh Freeze talked about it. Hank Brown played amazing. I think he graded out at 100% at the line of scrimmage, like making his checks and everything. And even mentioned that Peyton Thorne was on the sideline helping coach up Hank Brown, helping him read the coverages and everything, which is awesome to hear about. Peyton Thorne had every opportunity to just kind of, give up on the season after that. But I'm glad to see that Peyton Thorne is there coaching up Hank Brown and making sure that Auburn is in the best situation possible on the field. So huge respect to Peyton Thorne for that. But everything that Hugh Freeze really talked about, so injury updates, so go ahead and throw this out there. Brandon Frazier will be out for an extended period of time. He is having surgery today, as he mentioned during the press conference. Cam Coleman and Too Tall, so Xavier Miller. Too early to tell on those two to see if they're going to be playing. And they're saying that he said they're hopeful, but too early to say. Cam Coleman, of course, got a arm injury on one of his catches against Cal. And Xavier Miller, I'm trying to don't have his pulled up. But they're hopeful. But Auburn's offensive line played well, even without Zavon Miller. So Auburn's not going to be in a hard spot without him, but quickly trying to get him back as soon as possible. And Camden Brown was able to hold the fort up while Cam Coleman was out. So hopefully still get to see a lot more of the wide receiver room. And then Cam Coleman will be back. Hopefully, if not Arkansas, if they're hopeful now, I would assume hopefully Oklahoma, which would be massive. Kyan Lee was someone who was not able to play for the New Mexico game, but they're expecting him to be able to play, saying he could have gone in versus New Mexico, but they were going to hold him out if they could. So they're very confident that he will be back this week. And Brandon Frazier, going back to him for a second, the best part about the tight end room is that when Brandon Frazier went down and was out, there's other guys ready to step in. Micah Riley got himself a touchdown versus New Mexico. You saw Rivaldo Fairweather get his first touchdown of the year. You saw tight ends being used all over the place. Luke Deal is going to be a vital part of this Auburn offense as well. Rico Walker was able to get a target against New Mexico. I think it really shows the depth at the tight end room because it's a position that Auburn should be using a lot more than they have been over the past over the other 2 games of the season. But New Mexico finally saw that going in the right direction. And a massive thing about receivers, talking about tight ends, moving to receivers. Hugh Freeze made a joke, and I hopefully he's being completely 100% serious, talking about Malcolm Simmons, because a lot of Auburn fans, including myself, are very confused about the lack of usage of Malcolm Simmons ever since the Alabama A&M game. And every time Malcolm Simmons touches the ball, something amazing happens. If it's a punt return, if it's a kick return, if it's, it's him taking an end round, if it's him catching the ball down the field, anything and everything Malcolm Simmons does is electric. And Hugh Freeze even said that Malcolm Simmons deserves to be on the field, and even said he'll find another box on the call sheet that just says Malcolm. Having specific play calls specifically made for Malcolm Simmons, because as SEC play comes around the corner, Malcolm Simmons has got to be used a lot more. He's got to. He's a secret weapon, and he's going to be the worst kept secret by the time the offense starts to utilize him a lot more. I think Malcolm Simmons has done enough to really go out on the field and put up some big numbers for Auburn. He has definitely been one of the best players on the field whenever he gets the ball, which goes to show again the electric recruiting that Hugh Freeze has been on as of late. He even went on to say that, talking about punt returning, which was a massive issue and has been for a good while that we've seen, and hopefully it gets fixed. But Hugh Freeze did mention that talking about Keontae Scott doesn't really understand why, but he knows Keontae Scott has the ability to do some damage returning the ball. And he said that he's been thinking about whatever the best course of action is for who goes in as the punt returns in light of Keontae's muff punts. He mentioned Malcolm Simmons, which of course, anytime that someone needs someone to make a play, Malcolm Simmons is going to be the guy that potentially gets talked about. Because I don't know if everybody watched the film of him at Benjamin Russell. He literally did everything. If Hugh Freeze even mentioned that Malcolm Simmons is probably the second best punter on the team. So literally everything Benjamin Russell needed Malcolm Simmons to do, he did. He played defense, he played offense, he played special teams. He was the kicker, the punter, the return man. He would hold the kicks for himself if he could do that too. So he's an electric player. Got to see more of him on the field. But there is the question, if you put a true freshman out there on punt return, will they be able to go up to it? So I'm very excited to see what Auburn can do with more Keontae Scott. More Malcolm Simmons. I would love to see him on the field in every single part of the game we possibly can. I know he's the gunner on punts, but overall, I think it's kind of time to see what else he can do in the return game. Auburn was able to slip him in at the kick return whenever New Mexico was doing all the pooch kicks. and he was able to get like a 37-yard return off one. So I definitely think Malcolm Simmons should be utilized a lot more than what we've seen of him so far. The defensive side of the ball was another key thing to talk about. Before I do that, I do want to mention the offensive line that, again, played very well against New Mexico, which, again, we're going to talk a lot about the New Mexico defense because it was one of I think statistically it's the worst one in college football, which Auburn letting them be in there in the game for a hot minute, but the offensive line played very well from what I've seen, and even without you starting O lineman in there with Xavier Miller being out, you saw a lot of consistency, which is what you love to hear. I don't remember hearing very many penalties against Auburn offensive line. Overall, I mean, I think Auburn's is finding guys who can step in on the O-line. Tate Johnson was able to go in. Braden Joyner was in. There's a lot of guys who go in. The offensive line should be a rotating door. You never want your guys to get too tired. You always want them to get in and be fresh. And that's what we saw against Mexico, and I think it worked out very well. Defensively, hopefully, the question was asked about DJ Durkin's ability to make changes, to become aware of what the offense is doing and make those and fix the defense going in the second half. I am looking for Auburn to finally go out and play 2 halves of defensive football. It would be awesome to see that happen. Arkansas is going to be a team that's going to test your defense a lot more than New Mexico did, probably a lot more than Cal did. And maybe not more than Cal did, but overall, I mean, Taylon Green is a very good quarterback, and UAB did some damage to their defense, and UAB wasn't able to really stop them. Taylon Green makes throws; he can run the ball at will. Hopefully, Auburn's looking at that as maybe not running the 3-man front. And of course, I said you want to try to lock down the quarterback run, which they did. They stopped Devin Dampier from running the ball. But Taylon Green is a better overall quarterback in the sense of he can make better throws. He also has better wide receivers than Devin did. Dampier is going to be a P4 quarterback next year. I'm calling that now. And I mean, honestly, it would not surprise me if he was the next Vanderbilt quarterback. Just Vanderbilt always just recycling in whatever the state of New Mexico is making over there in the quarterback position. But Taylon Green's a whole other monster. Andrew Armstrong is at wide receiver. Jaquindon Jackson's at running back. They have weapons. They have an offensive line that can, if you only rush 3, the offensive line at Arkansas is going to keep your defensive line out of the game. So hopefully that's something that gets altered in the game plan. Don't run the 3-man front against Arkansas. It's not going to work. Run the blitz, send the 4, and then time your blitzes correctly, trying to get pressure on the quarterback. That's going to be key to this game against Arkansas, is getting pressure on the quarterback. Taylon Green, again, very good quarterback. Make him make mistakes. All the defense needs to do in this game, especially with the lack of depth at the defensive line or at the defensive backfield. So hopefully you can see a lot more of that going into the Arkansas game. And just another key thing to look out for is the Arkansas defense. I mean, Landon Jackson is an absolute stud, and he's going to be the one to watch on that defensive line. He is all SEC caliber player for them, and Auburn's going to have to really, rely on what they do best on offense. Intermediate passing game, getting the ball out quickly, and running the ball. Running the ball a lot. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything Hugh Freeze talked about, and that's kind of my thoughts on what Auburn needs to do to beat Arkansas. And, of course, we'll have a full breakdown of the game on the Thursday show, as well as our Week 4. We're in Week 4 now. Week 4 breakdown of college football, where I'm going to predict my top 10 games of the week as well. And then just to round out the football segment, I'm going to be giving my SEC power rankings. I have updated this list extensively. I think a lot of teams moved outside. I think 3 through 6 stayed the same, but everyone else moved all the way around. So Number 16 is Mississippi State. They really showed off that they are the worst team in the SEC by losing to Toledo by, I think it was 44-17, 41. It was something crazy along those lines. I don't have the score pulled up because it's not worth it with how they looked. Overall, I mean, yeah, they are the worst team in the SEC, and I don't think it's necessarily even remotely close. They look bad. They look like a team that honestly didn't belong in the SEC because Toledo absolutely manhandled them. Toledo should never be manhandling anybody in the SEC, but I mean, Toledo's a great team. That is a MAC powerhouse over there that was able to just go in and absolutely demolish an SEC program. And I feel bad for Jeff Lebby and company. I mean, he's got it. He's got a tough stretch of a season left for Mississippi State, and ultimately, you're gonna have to get right before the rest of the season goes along. So yeah, Mississippi State firmly at 16. Number 15, I have the Florida Gators. Coaches on the hot seat, and hot seat might be underestimating how hot that seat actually is. That seat is on fire. That seat is in the bottom level of hell. that chair is that chair is ash right now. I believe the board of trustees has already met to try to collect the $26 million that needs to be used to buy out the rest of his contract. Yeah, Billy Napier is just as good as gone. We are just all waiting for the notification that he has been fired at this point. And I can see it happening sooner rather than later. The quicker they can get that done, the faster they can try to get. I believe the hot topic right now for Florida right now is hopefully grabbing Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, which would be absolutely hilarious. Number 14, you had a good run. It was a great run, Vanderbilt. You had a great run for 2 whole weeks. You were getting AP votes. You were looking like a middle of the pack SEC team. You were looking good. Then Georgia State. You walked into Atlanta, and Georgia State threw a game-winning touchdown on you, bringing you back to reality. So, yeah, I'm going to put Vanderbilt at 14 in the SEC. Hopefully they can turn it around. I love it whenever Vanderbilt is good at football. So, yeah, Vanderbilt currently at 14. 13, the Arkansas Razorbacks struggled with UAB. I think that kind of shows that I'm not too high on Arkansas this year. I never was. I think they have a lot of weapons that, if they use correctly, they can turn into a middle-of-the-pack SEC team that can do some damage and give people fits. That's why I'm a little worried about Auburn this weekend, just a tad bit. So, yeah, Arkansas at 13. They have the weapons to do so. I think it might just be a coaching thing. I really do. I mean, I think Arkansas has the tools needed to be a established program, or I don't want to say established. They are an established program in the SEC. They have past success, but they have everything in motion to get to where they want to be. But I just don't think they can do it under Sam Pittman. So yeah, Arkansas at 13. Number 12. This might become the shocker to some Kentucky fans, but Kentucky's at number 12. They played great against Georgia. I think that was mostly Georgia playing down to their opponent. That Georgia should have absolutely demolished Kentucky. I don't want to give credit for just Georgia not playing up to par. Kentucky got in the fetal position and chose to lose at the end of the game. That's not what good programs do. When it's 3 minutes left and it's 4th and whatever, and you are down by 1 point against the number 1 team in the country, you should be doing everything in your power to win the game. Georgia has more talent than you do. You take advantage of that. Try to beat them over the middle. Try to beat them down the field. Try to get that first down and keep yourself in the game for a potential game winner. Kentucky had an opportunity to jump up in this list. I mean, we are 2 weeks away out, or we're working on getting 2 weeks out from when we just saw this team last week get boat raced by South Carolina, and then they give Georgia the biggest fight of their lives. Save face, get the win, or try to get the win. Don't just accept defeat by punting the ball. It was embarrassing. Don't do that. That's why they are currently at 12. Number 11, South Carolina. I almost made them. They almost jumped Auburn, in my opinion. They kind of just. I don't want to say they blew the lead. They did, but also that was a terribly officiated game. I'm not going to give them too much. South Carolina has jumped up. Number 11 is where they stand. The entire bottom half of this list is just really hard to really scheme together a list. But yeah, South Carolina couldn't beat the refs, couldn't beat LSU. Got number 11 for right now. Number 10, I got the Auburn Tigers jumping up from last week as the offense finally looks like it can work, which is a beautiful thing to see happen. Of course, I'm saying that as an Auburn fan, so it might be a little biased that I have them jumping up after playing the worst defense in college football, but it's my show, so I can rank them as high as I would like to, but I got them at 10. Auburn has opportunity to really show that they can compete, like we all bugged our way into believing after week 1. As long as the offense can do what they do best and continuously do it without trying to do too much that will cost them the game. You get Hank Brown as comfortable as possible. He was confident against New Mexico. Arkansas is a whole other beast than New Mexico. And of course, the next 3 games afterwards aren't going to be an easy road either. So yeah, Auburn currently at 10. Number 9, speaking of the teams down the road, Oklahoma. I have them dropping down a spot after they almost lost to Tulane. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they almost lost on the box score, but that game, Tulane was fairly close to them. Number 8, I have LSU getting the win at Columbia, South Carolina, retaliating and getting the dub despite the fact that the refs had a little bit of a hand in that game. So, yeah, LSU currently number 8, but that team looks very fraudulent. Very fraudulent as LSU. Number 7 is Texas A&M. They looked great against Florida, but Florida is Florida. You have a backup quarterback who might be one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the SEC. He looked the part. Everything in Marcel Reed, absolute dog mentality, dude. I love watching. It's funny because I was watching him play, and with his height and how he plays, I saw a little bit of Kyler Murray when he was at Texas A&M, and I could honestly think, I was like, dang, this dude's gonna be really good for like Oklahoma or Lincoln Riley in a couple of years. Like that's all I could think about when I was watching him play. So yeah, Texas A&M is gonna be number 7 for me, and 6 and up are pretty easy to predict because these 6 teams are all in the top 7 in the country. Number 6, I have Ole Miss. All I can say is play a real team, and then I'll move you up. I can't foresee it happening anytime soon. Tennessee gets the same factor for me here at 5. Alabama is currently at number 4 for me. Wisconsin not very good. I almost jumped Tennessee over Alabama. 3, I have Missouri. I'm still very strong Missouri. They played the best. They had the only ranked versus ranked matchup of week 3, and they came back and got the win over a very good Boston College team. Which not a phrase I thought was ever going to be said out of my mouth ever. But yeah, Bill O'Brien has Boston College looking really good, which is crazy. Number 2, I have Georgia. You showed yourself a little bit and struggled your way to a win over Kentucky in a game you were favored by 22. So with that, you're going to drop a spot. I still believe Georgia is one of the best teams in the country, but Texas at number 1. Quinn Ewers went out, going to be out for a week or so, or a couple weeks. I don't know how long exactly. I haven't really looked into it that much, but I do know he's out for an extended amount of time. Arch Manning went in versus UTSA and had fun. A lot of fun. So much fun that people are already putting him in the Heisman race after just 1 week of football for Arch Manning. But you have La Monroe this week. I guess find ways to force narratives. I think Arch Manning is now like 7th in the Heisman race, which is absolutely crazy considering he's played UTSA, which I love the Roadrunners. Don't get me wrong. I love the Roadrunners, but come on. So yeah, that's my rankings for my power rankings for the SEC going into week 4. Of course, we do that every Tuesday where I power rank it. I've got to make a graphic for it. That might actually help out with the visual aid for everything. But yeah, 16 Mississippi State and Texas number 1. Huge gap between those two teams. So with that, going to move on to the remainder of the show. We're going to cover everything else that goes on at Auburn: men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and softball. Because women's basketball, baseball, and softball all had schedules get released. So after this little ad break, we'll be back to talk about the rest of Auburn athletics. So we'll be right back. Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program. Of course, that's thewarreport.com. First page, if you go to the shop, click shop. And then first page is the Feelin' Loopy hat. Second page is or college loop hat. Sorry. The second page is the Feelin' Loopy t-shirt. Go check those out. Most comfortable items you're ever going to wear in your entire life. I've actually talked to 10 therapists. All 10 of them actually said wearing the Feelin' Loopy t-shirt and the college loop hat at the same time actually boosts your book rates through the roof. So the more you wear the college loop merch, the more likely Auburn is to win a national championship. Or at least it makes you think that that's going to happen this year. So if you're ready to boog, college league merch is where it's at. So Auburn men's basketball, we already talked about our schedule before, and it's going to be a doozy of one. It's going to be absolutely awesome and fun season to watch whenever it gets underway. But men's basketball news is professional news. Isaac Okoro, former Auburn Tiger himself, part of that 2019 or not 2019 team, 2020 team that looked the part until COVID. But yeah, Isaac Okoro signs a 3-year, $38 million deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers to return for, I guess, 3 more years. Big ups to Isaac Okoro getting that bag. Women's basketball news. The non-conference slate has been released on October 31st. They will have their exhibition match against LaGrange College, which is actually where my girlfriend went and got her undergrad. So, going to be a house divided for that game. So yeah. November 4th, Southern Illinois. November 6th, you have Virginia University in Lynchburg. Then November 14th, you have Little Rock. Then you welcome in a P4 team in Oregon. I say welcome in. You're traveling to Eugene to play Oregon. November 22nd, traveling to Berkeley to take on the Cal Golden Bears. Then you come back home for you travel to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Take on Northern Iowa, Pittsburgh, and Kansas. Then you're back for the SEC ACC Challenge, where you take on the Virginia Cavaliers in Charlottesville, Virginia. Then you are back at home to take on the UAB Blazers. Then you travel to Lafayette, Louisiana, take on the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns. Back home for Alabama State, and then on December 21st and December 29th, you round out non-conference schedule with Norfolk State. I guess the game I'm most excited for is going to be the Oregon game. That one's going to be the most electric, I think. It's already first true road test for Auburn this year, and a team that I'm very excited to watch. And this is a tournament team. I see opportunities for Auburn to come out of non-con with a very decent record. I mean, Oregon, Cal, Pitt, Kansas, Virginia are the main P4 ones, and then a lot of mid-majors that give Auburn some issues. But you make it through this with a decent record, this is going to be another tournament team. Auburn's going to have 2 high-seeded tournament teams, might I add. But yeah, you're in the same conference as South Carolina, so be wary of that. Auburn baseball news. SEC baseball schedule has been announced for the baseball season as well, the 2025 season. Auburn will start off SEC play taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores at home. So that's going to be March 14th through the 16th. Then next week, the 21st to the 23rd, they'll be traveling to Lexington to take on Kentucky. The next week, 28th through the 30th, taking on the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. The next week, you are back at home for the Iron Bowl of baseball. Then back at home for the next week, take on the LSU Tigers. Then you'll travel to Austin, take on the Texas Longhorns. Mississippi State back next week at home. Then you travel to Knoxville, take on Tennessee. Back at home for South Carolina, and then travel to Oxford and take on the Ole Miss Rebels. It's going to be a very difficult slate to get through. I mean, you have a bunch of powerhouses on here with Texas, Vanderbilt. Depending on the year, Mississippi State and Ole Miss definitely could be in that list as well. Georgia, Alabama both had decent years last year, and of course LSU, always a great baseball program, and Tennessee. So Auburn just has to fix the biggest issue and the biggest elephant in the room, which is the pitching staff. Make sure, and Auburn's done a lot through the transfer portal to really pick up those guys and recruiting very well as well. I believe they have like a top 10 class coming in. So just get it done. That's all I can say. I think the biggest one I think the biggest series is going to be that first one versus Vanderbilt at home. That'll tell you as much as you want to know going into the rest of the SEC slate how good this team's going to be, and of course you have the non-conference slate as well in the midweeks. So, lastly on the docket for today, Auburn softball. Their SEC slate has also been announced, and the biggest thing about this, I'll go ahead and run through it real quick. So, their graphic is all weird and everything. I'm not going to try to get it all in order. The home weekend series are going to be Texas A&M, March 14th through the 16th. Then Florida, the 28th through the 30th of March. Georgia, the April 11th through the 13th. April 25th through the 27th, take on South Carolina. Then their away games. Mississippi State's going to be the first away game. That's going to be the first SEC weekend of the season for Auburn. Mississippi State, March 7th through the 9th. Then travel to Austin, take on Texas March 21st to the 23rd. Take on Kentucky April 4th through the 6th. And then the Lady Volunteers of Tennessee April 18th through the 20th. And then, of course, SEC tournament on the 6th through 10th of May. The biggest one on this schedule to me is in Knoxville. Tennessee just got done winning, or not just got done winning. Oklahoma won it last year, which luckily Auburn avoids Oklahoma, but they had to play them eventually, probably if they make a run of the SEC tournament. But to me, the biggest one here is going to be Tennessee. That is the biggest game on the schedule. Of course, I'm excited to see how this team looks. You know, the Malvos have been recruiting very well. They've been picking up commits left and right and transfers all over the place inside the SEC. I'm excited for this season. I think Auburn has an opportunity to do, and I hope there might be some growing pains starting off with, but ultimately I think that Auburn has everything in place to get things done the right way and do some damage. The biggest part of the schedule, though, Auburn doesn't play Alabama, which I thought was the weirdest thing, because I was like going through and people were saying like there's no Alabama on the schedule. How did that happen? How do you avoid Alabama on a schedule? Which is absolutely crazy. I understand that you're trying to force Texas and Oklahoma into everyone's schedule, but put Bama in there. They gotta be. I think it's weird. So no Iron Bowl softball this year, which again, just a very weird thing to talk about. So yeah, I'm excited for Auburn softball this year. Of course, that fall ball is right around the corner. I think I have that schedule pulled up somewhere. I did not. Oh, here we go. I believe this is the fall schedule. So they'll be taking fall ball will start on October 11th versus West Georgia. Then they'll play on the 12th to play Chipola. October 19th, Northwest Florida State. Then they'll play Georgia Southern on October 20th. Wallace State on the 25th. And then Pearl River on the 26th. Those are all the home games. And then they'll have 2 away games as part of fall ball. They'll play Florida State on November 9th and then play Team Canada on the 9th as well. So, yeah, very weird schedule. Hopefully, I saw someone make the joke. If you play Florida State in fall ball, it means you get to avoid them in the postseason, right? Hopefully that is true for that. So, yeah, very excited for Auburn softball. I love Auburn basketball, but softball, I interchange sometimes. But I think Auburn softball currently stands as my third favorite of the Auburn athletics. I enjoy going to it. Me and Lauren go to them all the time. We love Auburn softball to death, so I cannot wait for the season to start up. Going to try to get to at least one fall ball game, trying to see which one kind of works out for our schedule. But believe me, y'all will hear all about it whenever we are there. So with that does it for this stuff of the College Loop Podcast. Of course, I am Dylan Larck. Are you watching on Twitter? Also on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck at DYLENLARCK. Visual aids right there on the YouTube, right next to me. There you go, right there. You got to get the hand placement right. And then, of course, you can find me right here on the College Loop Podcast. We are getting so close to 900 subscribers. I believe as we speak, we're 889 at the time of me recording this, which is awesome. So 11 away from 900, 111 away from 1K, which would be awesome to get before football season is over with. So I cannot thank you all enough for the growing support of the College Loop Podcast. And of course, don't forget to check us out on the audio versions of go check out the audio version of the show as well on Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, of course, Amazon Music. And of course, with all that being said, this has been the College Loop Podcast. And as always, War Eagle.